Are you planning on leaving America and moving to South America, for example, to Cuenca, Ecuador? Have you been struggling with the process of finding a rental property? Well, you're not alone. Many expats and retirees struggle with this, and today I'm breaking down exactly how to find an unfurnished and furnished apartment in Cuenca, Ecuador. And we're talking to the star of my channel, Mike, who moved to Cuenca from Iowa and shipped all of his possessions in a container. Guys, I've been getting questions from viewers like you about how to find a place in Cuenca. People have been mentioning that they can't find furnished or they can't find unfurnished apartments on the websites and platforms they are on. Others are unsure if they should be shipping all of their belongings in a container or just buying locally. Today, we're solving both of those problems. For those that haven't seen the previous two videos with Mike, you can check it out here or in my expat interview playlist. Mike is a man from Iowa who moved himself and his husband to Cuenca with all of his possessions in a container. Today, he's going to share exactly how he did it, how much it cost,
the container came from Chicago to Des Moines.
And what he learned. Let's get into it.
How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing great.
Looks like you have your sweater on. Is it pretty cold over there?
It is kind of a rainy, gloomy day, and so I put on my Ecuadorian sweater.
Yeah, I see some. Is that alpaca on the sweater?
It is alpaca. If I was able to get this one for about $35, it probably would have been close to $200 had I bought it in the United States.
Fantastic. It's a really nice looking alpaca. I have an alpaca myself back in Minnesota. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the topic one of two. So there's two topics. First topic is going to be accommodation rentals, what you chose. And then we'll talk about how you brought your stuff down, because that is something some people have asked in my channel. So let's start off with number one. How did you start researching rentals before arriving to Cuenca?
Well, we were actually pretty lucky because my husband's cousin has been here for about 6 years, and he had recommended a woman by the name of Vicky Spitzak. It's Spitzak, and she did all of our recommendations for our move. She found us an Airbnb when we first arrived, and we were there for 2 months. That gave us time to look for a place in Cuenca.
So you started at an Airbnb. Was that in the same neighborhood that you're in now?
It was. It ended up being about 2 blocks away, and in fact, I was walking the dog one day, and I walked past the place where we live, and I looked in and I thought, boy, this is a place I'd like to live, not thinking that we ultimately would end up being here.
Oh, so you actually found it in person walking past it?
I did, yeah.
Ah, okay. And this person you mentioned, that was the contact, your husband's cousin's contact, right?
That's correct. She had done their move for them 6 years ago, and she has been rated as the top mover in Cuenca by GringoPost, that does an annual rating. And
gotcha.
It's very good.
See, so she's a rental agent. Is that what she does?
No, she doesn't do rental agents. She just she handled our entire move, and she just happened to know a personal friend that had this Airbnb, and so she recommended it.
Oh, so she recommended the Airbnb, and then you found it all by yourself.
We've actually used a realtor to find our apartment. And this just happened to be one of the ones that he showed us.
Ah, okay. So you found it even though you saw it randomly, even though this was found by your realtor.
That's correct.
Ah, okay. So let's talk a bit more about the realtor situation. What were the costs that went into that? Were there like certain commissions and deposits and fees? How did?
Actually, with the realtor, his fees were paid by the landlord. When he rents a property, he gets a certain percentage of the rent for that particular property. And he was also been rated as one of the top realtors in Cuenca. And so we just happened to read some recommendations for him, and that's how it all worked.
And what is the name of this realtor?
He's actually, his name's Jurgen Gorky, and it's JurgenGorcke. And both Jurgen and Vicky's email is just their names with gmail.com.
And this is, you contacted them on their email, or do they have a website you found?
Actually, I think that there was a website or email. I don't remember exactly how I contacted them, but they were very, very accommodating, both of them.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Were there any unexpected kind of deposits or maintenance fees, or beyond? Because you said you pay $1,300, isn't it? Were there any extra fees on top of that?
We did have a 1 month deposit for our apartment, and we also had a deposit for our dog. So,
oh, how much was the deposit for the month and the dog?
the month was the 1,300 plus half of that for the dog.
Oh, okay. So that was an extra 2,000.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this rental agreement was for how long? 6 months, a year, 2 years?
It was for a year.
When you reached out to this realtor, you already knew that you wanted an unfurnished, or did you think maybe of a furnished place?
We had all of our furniture coming in a container, so we were looking for an unfurnished apartment. And so he just showed us apartments that were unfurnished, or that the landlord would be able to take what furnishings were there out. And we probably looked at maybe about 6 or 7 different apartments. And this actually happened to be the last one that we looked at. So it was over a course of about a week or week and a half that we were looking at properties. And we just told him what we were looking for, and then he took it from there. We had some really good options, but we were pretty specific on what we were looking for. And because the sun is very intense here, we didn't want one with a west exposure, and so we get that afternoon sun. But and we wanted something that had a view, and so there were some things that we were looking for.
And so, since you had stuff coming down from Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
did you research before looking at the differences between the prices in unfurnished versus furnished, and that's why you sent stuff down?
In all honesty, there isn't that great of a difference between furnished and unfurnished apartments. You'll probably find more furnished apartments in Ecuador for rent than unfurnished ones. So it became a little more difficult for us, but not impossible. So that's essentially how that worked. We looked at apartments that ranged anywhere from 800 to 1,300 that we ended up paying.
Right, and so you said a lot of the furnished were almost the same price as unfurnished?
Pretty close, depending on what you were looking at. Now, we did not look at any furnished apartments, but we have friends that had furnished apartments, and we just kind of wanted our own. We had nice furniture at home, and we kind of wanted to keep it. And so
that makes sense. What would be a good platform or place to find these unfurnished and furnished apartments if someone wants to do the research back at home in the U.S.?
Well, they could certainly contact a realtor in Cuenca, and they could make recommendations for them, and they could show them pictures. The other option is there's a newsletter that goes out every day by email. It's called GringoPost, and you can subscribe to GringoPost, and every day there are apartments that are on GringoPost, and they might show 6 to 10 pictures of that particular apartment, and it will say if it's furnished or unfurnished and whether it's pet friendly or whatever. Sometimes now our HOA, I'm not exactly sure what they call it in Spanish, but the HOA is included in the cost of our rent. Whereas some apartments, if you're in a condo or something, you might have to pay an HOA in addition to the rent.
Yeah, that's good information to keep in mind because HOAs can be kind of a large amount of money on top of it, can it?
Yeah, I think our HOA is about $300 a month. So that brings the cost of our rent down. Or I mean, it's
Wow.
all figures. It all figures in.
So basically, the 1,300 includes 300 of the HOA, which would be 1,000 in total without that.
That's correct.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Maybe when people talk about renting, they usually say the price without HOA.
That's correct. Now, usually, like in GringoPost, it will say plus so much for an HOA.
Yeah, I think that's probably what people are thinking is that, or there's many places that don't even have HOAs too.
That's
So
correct. Yeah, if you're living in a house or an apartment, possibly it wouldn't be one.
right. So where I stayed over next to Banos, there was no HOA. It was a tiny little apartment with a building with 6 apartments or something on it. So
Okay.
yeah, of course,
Sure.
the smaller ones with less amenities won't have it. Like what you're saying, yours is really big with lots of amenities, right?
That's correct.
Would you say the best option for people coming down, if they're planning to move down like right now, this year, 2025, do you think it's good for them to do what you did, come down for 2 months in an Airbnb, check out the places, and then move in?
Absolutely, because you really don't know which neighborhood you're going to want to live in until you're here. And so we were here for probably about maybe 3 weeks before we actually started looking with the realtor. And that way it gave us an opportunity to just take a look around the city, and we were able to tell him which areas that we wanted to live or which areas that we didn't want.
Let's expand on that idea of the best neighborhoods. Can you give your idea of the top 5 neighborhoods in Cuenca?
Oh boy. No, I would say that probably um, El Vergel is a neighborhood where very close to where we live. Lots of people like to live in El Centro, which is where there's lots of action. We're in our 70s, and we certainly aren't going out late at night, so we weren't looking for that. It's going to be noisier there. Gringo Land is an area where there are lots of high rises. A lot of expats live there. Um, Puente del Sol is another neighborhood. So those are probably would be my top choices.
And you're in, it's called Solano, it's called?
Well, we're on Solano. We're right on the edge of El Vergel, and I think that the neighborhood that we're in is called Sucre, but I'm not sure on that.
Well, those are all really good suggestions. People are asking me about neighborhoods. People are asking me about, different ways to move down. And of course, who is better to give that information than you, Mike, right?
Well, I don't know that I'm the best, but I do have some information.
Well, you got some great information, and your fan base, I'm sure, is very happy to see you again on my channel.
If you're enjoying this interview and you're interested in seeing more content like this, you can check out my playlist called the Expat Interview Playlist, where I have been interviewing people from Guatemala all the way down through Central America and now here in South America.
Let's switch over to the part of you moving your stuff down, because people ask that question a lot too. They say, should I bring my stuff down? Is it worth it? How much does it cost? All of those things. So let's start off by touching on why you decided to bring your stuff down in the first place.
Well, a lot of my friends actually just came with maybe 2 suitcases. We weren't able to do that. And so we've contacted Vicky Spitzak, and she helped us through the whole process and was able to find both a local mover for us to load the container. The container came from Chicago to Des Moines by truck. And then it went back to Chicago, where it was loaded onto a train and shipped to the East Coast. And at which point it was loaded onto a barge. And it took almost 3 months, not 3 months, 6 weeks for that barge to come down through the Panama Canal, and finally arrived in Guayaquil, and there it went through customs, and her company handled all of the stuff with customs, so we didn't have to actually be there for that, and so it was really convenient. And then it was trucked from Guayaquil to Cuenca. Now, we weren't able to move into our apartment until the 1st of April, and it arrived probably about the middle of May. So she actually put our stuff in storage for 2 months before we moved into the apartment where we are now.
Where did it leave from in the United States? What was the port?
I think it left out of some place in New Jersey, and I'm not sure where that was.
Wow, that's quite the mission. And you said from when it left Des Moines to arriving to Cuenca, how much was that in total?
The full time was about let's see, it was about 6 weeks.
6 weeks was from leaving Des Moines and arriving to Cuenca.
That's correct.
That wasn't the shipping through the Panama Canal. That was the
It
entire
was
thing.
the entire trip through the Panama Canal. And
that's pretty efficient right there, huh?
Yeah, it was very efficient. Yeah.
Wow, because we're talking. You said the container on the truck, and then the train, and then the boat, barge. Going all the way past canal.
Right.
Who knows what will happen at the canal? Sometimes there's block ups there, and you had no delays at all.
No delays.
Wow, crazy. So let's talk about the fees then. Obviously, people want to know, well, is it worth the money? How much did you spend in total?
Well, we spent about $12,000, I think, for the move, and that was for everything, and getting the stuff through customs and for the container. We ended up having about everything had to be boxed, and you had to account for every item in the box. So you had an inventory. So, for instance, if you had one box that was all kitchen stuff, you had to spell out that you had 12 knives and 12 forks and 12 spoons on. So you listed everything that was in your containers. So, or in your boxes. And we ended up having about 157 boxes. Now, a box would also include so the sofa would be a box, or a chair would be a box, or the table would be a box. But there was 150 items altogether, or boxes or furniture.
Uh-huh.
And it was, and then once it gets to Guayaquil and it goes through customs, they actually inspect a certain number of the boxes. And if you haven't done a good job on your inventory, you could be fined or charged a fee. So it's very important that you are very meticulous on how you do your particular and how you label each box. And so that's essentially how we did it.
Boxing strategy is very important, huh?
It was very, very important. It took us about 2 weeks to box everything and to do the whole inventory. And so that your inventory went with the truck or went with the container. Now, we used a 20-foot container. You can also get a 40-foot container. Now, we were able to move a 2-bedroom apartment with all of our stuff in the 20-foot container. Now, we would have had a hard time squeezing in an extra yardstick. It was packed so tight, but we were able to get everything in.
So what would be the cost of the 40? Did you check out the differences?
We didn't. That would be more for like if you had a whole house. And we didn't really look at the cost for that because we weren't interested in using. It said that a 2-bedroom apartment would fit in a 20-foot container.
Gotcha. And you spent 2 weeks packing all those boxes up. While you were packing, did you need to limit what you were bringing in? Because when it comes to, for example, coming into on the plane. When you're flying in, you can only bring so many things, or else you have to pay the customs import tax on extra amounts of things because, just to protect the local businesses, all the different things. So within that 13,000, were there a lot of extra fees? Do you know what the customs fees were on that?
It was all included. So it was just like a one-stop shop for us going through Vicky.
So you weren't quite sure what the container by itself and the transport itself was?
I honestly don't know. You'd have to contact Vicky or someone that was doing moving for you to
Gotcha.
figure out this.
So now that you've brought all your stuff down, you're happy with all your stuff, and you see that there's a lot of other places with, furnished apartments and stuff.
I'd like to say thank you so much for watching my videos, and if you want to show support for my channel, please hit that like and subscribe like always. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can buy me a coffee, you can support me on Patreon, and you can also join my channel as a member. That goes to me and really helps me provide all the things that I need in order to make these high quality videos for you guys here in Latin America. Let's get back to the video.
If you had to move down again, would you come down without your stuff and just leave it there just in case because of the difficulties and the cost? Or do you think it's totally worth it?
I think it's totally worth it because, for one thing, we found that Ecuadorian furniture wasn't quite as expensive, or wasn't quite as comfortable as what we had in the United States. For some reason, their chairs are always low, the tables are high. So we felt like that, particularly in the Airbnb, that we were having to eat kind of like this. And, so we were glad that we brought our stuff.
So if you decide to move to a different apartment, let's say you stay one or 2 or 3 years or something where you are, what would you do to move to another apartment? Do you think you can hire a company and pay $100 or something and have them move to your new place?
Well, there are movers that take care of that, and Vicky's company does do moves for you as well. They're very efficient. I just couldn't believe how quickly they unloaded the truck and brought everything in. And she's got a huge crew that works for her, and they've been very helpful afterwards when we had some questions of things that we weren't sure about or needed. She's been very helpful.
And did it take like 1 day, or how long did they move their stuff from all your stuff from the container in to your place?
I think that they started about 10 o'clock in the morning, and if I remember right, they were done about 2:30 or 3.
Oh,
so
okay.
They were very, very efficient. I mean, it was they did a great job.
So if you wanted to perhaps move to a different apartment or a different house, you could probably have that done in a day or 2.
Yeah, I don't know whether we'd have to box everything up ourselves or whether they would come and do that for us. I just don't know. We kind of looked for a place where we've wanted to retire. So we're very happy here and are not thinking about moving.
All of this is very useful information for anyone, asking all these questions. I hope this answers as many of the questions that people have been giving on the comments as possible. And I want to thank you so much, Mike, for, again, reappearing and being able to satisfy your super fans that you have on my channel now.
Well, I certainly never knew that I would have any super fans. Thank you so much.
Now you know exactly how Mike moved down from Iowa all the way down to Cuenca, but I have a couple extra tips to give to you guys. There are many different platforms and places where you can find this information, whether it be on Facebook. There are many Facebook groups. You can find it on Airbnb for monthly rentals. You can find it on websites like OLX. And of course, what Mike suggested is a fantastic option as well on the website that he currently uses. Today, we covered the platforms and websites, why you probably want to start off in an Airbnb and perhaps walk around the neighborhoods, check out the places that are not even available online just in case, and make your decision after arriving for the long term. We even heard about how Mike shipped all of his belongings down and how he felt that it was totally worth the money and that perhaps in your situation it could be too. So what do you think? Would you bring your belongings in a container down to Cuenca or Ecuador, or would you start from scratch? Let us know in the comments below. Hasta la próxima.